What's up, everybody? I'm Katie, and this is For Your Misinformation, a podcast dedicated to making politics more accessible for everyday Americans. My goal is to empower people, especially women, to become more politically engaged so we can act in our own best interests. Let me identify the problem and tell you exactly how we can solve it. On Mondays, I break down topics like voter suppression, impeachment, and white supremacy, look to the experts in that field, and then talk about the ways we can help the most. That might be donating to a charitable organization, voting in a local election, going to a rally, following activists on social media, running for office, or whatever else we can think of. On Wednesdays, I highlight individual politicians, whether I support them, and who you might want to vote for instead. Guys, what is going on? Between impeachment and the Iowa caucuses, I cannot keep track of what is happening. So as of the time of this recording on Tuesday, still don't really have results from the Iowa caucuses. So I don't know. Honestly, that's kind of funny. It's like we've been freaking out about it, and then oh well, no news. And then with this impeachment stuff, I'm going to be honest, I keep alternating between extreme anger and extreme despair. I'm mad at myself for letting me get my hopes up about them calling witnesses. Really? We're not even going to hear from John Bolton? Why did I let myself get my hopes up? I don't know. But okay, despair is not a useful emotion. So I'm trying to stay away from that one. Anger can be channeled into something productive, and that is what I've been trying to do. So obviously every Republican in the Senate, except for Susan Collins from Maine and Mitt Romney from Utah, voted not to call witnesses. So in a 51-49 vote, for the first time ever in the United States, we had an impeachment trial that had no witnesses. This comes out on Wednesday. The Senate will vote to acquit him. And goodbye checks and balances. Remember those? Don't you miss them? I already missed them. That just showed, the founding fathers saw the potential of somebody like Trump getting to be president. That's why they made impeachment one of the checks on his power. And that's what just happened. That should have been a check on his power. And because they did not foresee such a complicit Congress, where every single person in the president's party would vote for him, whether he was guilty or not. I don't know, we're entering a dangerous territory. So instead of being all nervous and whatever about it, I found I do what I do a lot, which is think to myself, well, what would Stacey Abrams do? And it is Black History Month, so I thought it would be appropriate to talk about one of the most inspiring women that I know in the Democratic Party, and her name is Stacey Abrams, and I want to introduce her to you. Abrams is a super smart progressive Democrat who ran for governor of Georgia in 2018 and lost by 50,000 votes in a state where more than 500,000 people were purged from the voter rolls. Here's a clip of an interview she did with CBS. It's a little bit long, but every single part of it's super important. damn, like, yes, I will do whatever you say. You are like the smartest and most inspiring person I have ever met. So what would Stacey Abrams want us to do? So Georgia has 2 Senate seats up in 2020. Both of the current occupants are your typical old white dudes who voted for Trump. Voted for the impeachment cover-up, whatever. They didn't vote for witnesses. They don't want a fair trial. We know this. So when I feel helpless, I ask, what would Stacey Abrams do? And right, so it's Black History Month, so we are listening to smart Black women. So she recently just endorsed Reverend Raphael Warnock. He's a pastor of the Atlanta church where Martin Luther King Jr. once preached. Abrams described Warnock as a leader who sees all of us and serves all of us. Georgia has 2 Senate seats up for election this cycle, and it's one of the states that we need to flip to regain control of the Senate and get Mitch McConnell fired. So the way that we can help the most, and what I think Stacey Abrams would want us to do is, 1, to donate money to Raphael Warnock's campaign. So if you go to the FYMI pod Instagram, I will show you where you can do that, or you can just Google it. You can donate money to Fair Fight 2020, which is Stacey Abrams' organization that is trying to prevent voter suppression in the top 20 battleground states in 2020. And you can also write letters to voters in Georgia who are most likely to vote but not move in the next year. So I will show you how to do that. It's called Vote Forward. I will show you how to do that too. So I recently adopted 5 voters, so I'm writing 5 letters, and then you mail them a week before the election, and it explains why you vote in every election. So anyway, I will put that up on the FYMI pod Instagram also. But also something you can do for free that takes like no time at all is you can follow Stacey Abrams, you can follow Reverend Warnock, you can follow Fair Fight 2020, and you can also follow this other cool resource, Vote Save America, that I'm sure I will be talking about on a later episode. But I don't want this to be too super long. But there is something else that is more of like a behavior change. So something that I'm realizing is becoming like more and more important is people need to become more comfortable talking about politics and posting about it on social media. So I feel like this kind of makes me sound like a baby, but I used to be really nervous about talking about politics, especially on social media, because I was worried about like some kind of backlash. I don't really know. But I decided that like I have a teeny tiny platform, but if it's like enough to inspire, like, I don't know, that Trump won Wisconsin by like 2 votes per precinct or something like that. Like, it's important to talk to your friends about stuff because like that's how you discover like common problems and common solutions and things like that. So why is it so important that we flip the Georgia Senate blue? Well, it matters because the vote in the Senate not to call witnesses was 51-49. So if we'd flipped just 2 more seats in 2018, we'd have like heard from John Bolton and other witnesses in a fair Senate impeachment trial. But because of gerrymandering and voter suppression and all of these things, like a rigged electoral college that is not particularly fair for a number of reasons, maybe we'll get into that in another episode, we had a situation where the Democratic nominee who won 3 million more votes was not elected president. So that's not a system that makes people feel like their voices are heard. But that's not a reason to despair. That's a reason to work even harder because we have to inspire even more people to vote so that we can like outdo the electoral college, outdo the biases that exist, that we need to work even harder to achieve success, which means getting a Democratic president in the White House and flipping the Senate, because as we've seen with Mitch McConnell at the head of the Senate, we're not going to get anything done. We have to take the gavel out of his hand. And one of the best ways to do that is to inspire new voters. And that's where you guys come in, is if you're anything like me, I imagine you have a couple friends who are just kind of like disengaged from politics. But when you talk about them, talk about politics with them, they have a lot of questions and they're interested. So it is our job. I promise if you're listening to this, you know more about politics, you care more about politics than any of your friends. If all of us could just get 5 friends to care enough to register to vote and come to the polls on election day, in the primaries, in the general, in local elections, then our voices would actually be heard. But it's not a coincidence that Republicans are trying to get us to feel disenfranchised. But one of the things that Stacey Abrams did is she inspired new voters to come to the polls. She expanded the electorate like Barack Obama did. But because of gerrymandering and the other forms of voter suppression, she still lost the election. Like I said, in a state where like 500,000 people were purged from the voter rolls. So that just doesn't sound like one vote per person. That it just doesn't work that way. So she lost that election unfairly, and instead of getting discouraged, she kind of took a break, reflected on what happened, and launched that organization called Fair Fight 2020. So yes, it sucks that things are unfair, but we still have to, we still live in a democracy where our voice counts. We just have to make sure that we are louder than the billionaires because they can vote with their pockets and we just don't have the same resources that they do. So it is possible to get to a better place. Most of the frustration we feel could be fixed by getting rid of Mitch McConnell, fixing voter suppression, and getting rid of money in politics. It is crazy that we let corporations and industries donate so much money to politicians. You know how you're scared to have kids because they might live through a school shooting or not live through a school shooting? Or is that just me? But, or what about climate change? What's going to happen? Why should we even bother to have kids because of what's happening to the earth? And we only have 11 years to fix it and nobody seems to care. That's because gun violence and climate change, those are public health issues. But since the NRA and the oil and gas lobbyists donate thousands, millions to Senate Republicans and honestly, a lot of Republican politicians, you can look it up, but Mitch McConnell himself, you can look that it's public information. Mitch McConnell takes thousands and thousands of dollars from the NRA every year to not pass gun reform. It's insane that we let that money be in politics. But if we elect progressive Democrats like Stacey Abrams, she's not running for anything right now, but she's one of the smartest, most inspirational people in the party. And I just think that we need to listen to what she has to say. And right now, what she has to say is that voter suppression is a huge issue. So you can donate to Fair Fight 2020. I am going to, every time I think I'm going to get anxious about voter suppression, I'm going to donate to Fair Fight 2020. Every time I get pissed about Mitch McConnell, I'm going to donate to Get Mitch or Die Trying, which is a fund through Vote Save America, which is another really, really great resource. You can sign up at votesaveamerica.com and they will email you only when there are actionable steps for you to do. You can talk about how much you want to help. If there's stuff you want to donate to, you can donate. If you want to volunteer, you can volunteer. It's kind of like a one-stop shop, and it's really, really interesting. I would encourage you guys to go poke around there. But all of these places also have Instagram accounts, and they post a lot of really interesting stuff. If you want to see where to donate, I will post this stuff on my Instagram, the FYMI Pod Instagram. I will also tag Reverend Warnock, who Stacey Abrams has just endorsed. So if we want to fix this status quo gridlock in Washington, we have to take away Mitch McConnell's job. And one of the most effective ways of doing that is flipping some states blue. And what Stacey Abrams says is that Reverend Warnock is her vote in Georgia. So I will be doing what I can to make sure that he is supported and that Stacey Abrams is supported, that Fair Fight 2020 is supported. And one of the main ways I'm going to do that is by talking about it on social media and donating money. So if you feel so compelled, maybe you guys can do some of that too. If you let me know, I will repost it on the Instagram. And I think that is it for me this week. Let me know if you guys have any feedback. As always, if you could rate and review, that would be awesome. And I will talk to you guys on Monday. Shout out to Hope Dye for the podcast art, Kyle Dibdahl for the intro and outro music, and Ben Schlofelt for the audio production. I'd like to thank Lauren Duca, Sarah Kensier, Andrea Chalupa, Brene Brown, Lizzo, AOC, Nancy Pelosi, Karen Kilgariff, Georgia Hardstark, Marie Newman, and my mom for their inspiration, and I'd like to thank you for listening.